Hey everybody, welcome to the Pixel Vision podcast. This is episode 2. I'm Tony with Mark
Hello, hello.
and Cole.
Hello, hello.
Oh, he did it again.
Where you sound exactly the same.
Yeah, he's just gonna haunt me now. He's my vocal doppelganger.
You
Oh,
go first, so I get to copy you.
that's true. That's true. We'll mix it up a little bit next time. Next time I'm gonna say Cole, and then we'll go with Mark.
Oh no.
It's gonna
And I,
totally screw up Mark. Mark's gonna not know what to do at all at that point.
I should mention right off the bat that technically this is episode 1 because you did the Resident Evil thing
Oh, you're
and
right.
called the other episode episode 0 just to confuse both us and anybody listening forever.
I'll say episode 0 because it's like an introduction. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, you're right. Oh, okay, you know what? I will rename it episode 1 just for you, and this will be episode 2. Because I think I said episode 1 in the audio, anyways, right?
Yeah, you probably said first
Or I
episode
said
or
this
something.
is the first. This is the first episode that we are doing. It doesn't really matter. Who cares? All right. So today's topic is going to be on monetizing our favorite scary games, and we're also going to be doing another trope that deals in the horror genre as well. But first, let's talk about monetizing. That's like a big issue I've noticed. It's been an issue for a while now, but a lot of people are getting really angry. I've noticed these last couple of months, especially with Payday 2, because the developers said they weren't going to ever monetize the game. That was like a promise they said, and just this past week they started monetizing. It came to the point where like if you bought a certain weapon, you would, if you wanted to use a skin for it, or if you got a free skin from them on their little safe crack thing, if you wanted to use the skin, you would have to buy the weapon, and the only way you could get the weapon was, of course, to pay for it. And people were just really pissed about it. And now, of course, people are getting angry at Assassin's Creed Syndicate as well. You can actually buy, like the game guide inside of it to get all the collectibles and certain things like that. And I have kind of mixed feelings on the issue. And this is me personally, because you don't have to buy this stuff.
Yeah,
It,
yeah.
it, it doesn't take anything away. I don't think it really takes away anything from the game. It does kind of suck for the fact that it's there, and it should be, back in our day when we were playing games, to when you unlock something, you did something great in the game, and then you got to use it. Now you don't get that anymore. You don't get that feeling anymore. You have to actually fork over your hard-earned cash, even more of it, just to get like a nice pretty little gun or costume for the characters. So, like I said, I have mixed feelings towards it.
It it's it kind of reminds me of the first. I don't know. I'm sure microtransactions were around a lot longer, but I
Mm-hmm.
remember the first time I started hearing the term a lot was when Dead Space 3 allowed you to buy different. Maybe it just gave you. Maybe you just used real money to buy virtual currency, but basically for their whole gun crafting mechanic in the game, you could spend real money to make like the best versions of all the many different guns you could make, and it was a really cool feature that had microtransactions. And I just remember people hating that. This was very early on too, so now maybe some people are even desensitized to it, even though the issue's only gotten worse. But but yeah, I remember I even addressed that in my review at the time when I wrote a review for it because it is optional, like you say, like not in this, especially in Dead Space's case. Not only is it entirely optional and you can just skip ever spending real money, but it's it's very arguable that it's better if you don't do that because why would you want to give yourself all these shortcuts in what's supposed to be a survival horror game,
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
we'll get into it a lot later in this episode, but that's part of what survival horror does, and like that's what makes the genre what it is that you are short on ammo and you're fighting to survive and you won't always have everything you need. So like the microtransactions in that case, it's a couple years old now, but especially in that case, it's like not only are they optional, but don't do it. It actually hurts the experience at that point.
yeah. And that's what it's all about, especially on survival horror. Is that experience? If you're not horrified while playing it, they're not really doing a great job with the game.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, I have plenty to say on Dead Space later. I don't want to mix up our topics already, but
There's,
Do they have that on the Wii U games? Like the Squid Kids that we were talking about from last
that's
week?
what I was just gonna mention too. I was gonna say, well, this is going against the whole point of me moving up to PS1 or Xbox or
PS1.
Xbox One or
Wow.
PS4. You can tell I'm a Nintendo fanboy. But yeah, like there's the only DLC I guess that Nintendo games have was like Mario Kart had a bunch of new races, a bunch of new carts and characters. Splatoon has all been free so far, and I'm shooting this off the top of my head, but there's been at least four new weapons, like three new maps, and a couple new game modes, all since it was released, and it's all just free.
Yeah,
But
the
it's kind of released week by week.
yeah, the I don't know what it is. For some reason the I don't know if the Japanese market just doesn't, because I mean they're in mobile too, and all these microtransaction ideas are just coming over from mobile, like we talked about last week a little bit, and it's like, are Japanese developers just not making iPhone games as much as Western developers are? Like, because that would
Hmm.
explain why they're not interested in that, or it's just interesting, the difference in business practice, I
They're too
guess.
busy making amiibos and selling those.
Well,
Yeah,
it
that's true.
seems
They
it
they
seems like
did they
sorry,
did
Mark.
give into that. Oh no, I was just gonna say they did give into that one, the toys to life, like, market, as they call it.
Yeah,
Well,
like it seems like they're trying to really make money off of the non just console and game purchases, but the smaller purchases because they just released for the 3DS. Or maybe yeah, they already released it. It's the Animal Crossing Happy Home Designer, and there's cards you have to buy, like packs of cards that give you new furniture and stuff like that, and that's the only way to get them. You can't just play the game to get them.
Oh, okay. See, so they're evil bastards too. Then we're
Yeah,
everyone's falling in line.
yeah.
that's true. I mean, well, they do have some games too, and I know this doesn't necessarily 100% deal with monetizing, but what's that like little game thing that's been going around? I think it's called Skylander, something like that, where you have to actually buy these little toys to get the characters in the game. So
Yeah,
you're already buying the $60 game, but hey, if you actually want the full version of the game, you're gonna have to buy all this extra stuff to play. I remember Doug wanted me to get it to review it, and then he found out about that. He goes, "Oh no, never mind. There's no way I'm gonna have you do that. You're gonna be spending like $200 or $300 just trying to get everything in the game, and it's just no point really." And I think that really hurts um, a developer like that, or publisher, whoever is coming up with this idea. When you're forcing people to pay like this. I mean, with the monetizing with other games, it's like you said, Mark. If you're paying for it, it's more hurting your experience. But in this case, it's no, the developers are just hurting themselves, because no one's gonna want to pay that much money to play a video game like that, especially right off the
well,
bat.
well, is that true though? I mean, apparently these games are super popular.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know they're super popular, probably with kids,
Oh
because it comes
yeah.
with. And then maybe that. All right, I will agree. Maybe that's a good part about it, is at least you get this physical thing that you can play with too,
Well,
if you're
honestly,
into that
they're
kind of
kind of
stuff.
just, aren't they just kind of statues though? I mean, if I was a little when I was a little kid, I liked like the little 6-inch GI Joes, because they were so articulate, and their arms and knees and every
Everything
part of their
bends.
body would
Yeah.
move well. And I always hated the little action figures that, their arms don't even bend or sometimes even move out of place at all. And I'm pretty sure that's what amiibos and the Disney Infinity characters, they're hardly really toys. They're more just like little
Collectibles.
collectibles you can put
Yeah.
on a shelf, maybe, if anything. But I mean, then kids will play with toys like that. But at a certain age, even as a kid, I was like, okay, this guy's arm doesn't even bend. This is stupid. you know?
No, no, I agree with that, and I think you're right. I think, excuse me, I think a lot of these are from people that actually want to collect them. Maybe the amiibos with is that what they call it? Amiibos?
That's the Nintendo
Amiibos, yeah.
version. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure I was saying it right. That way, some Nintendo fanboy isn't gonna start sending me a letter right now, threatening to kill me.
Cole's already writing it.
Yeah, it's Cole right now. Yeah, he's like,
No,
don't.
you can go look at my Reddit history, and I've got some posts that are like very angry when they first announced them.
Really? Like, why is that?
Well, because main thing was it was before Splatoon was released, and they were locking away certain single player campaign portions of the game unless you
Oh.
bought the amiibos. You can play the whole game now, but then if you have the amiibos, it'll unlock like time trial based things, which then unlock certain gear that you can only get with the amiibos.
Hmm.
And this was before the game was released, so they're just already. I'm like, my argument was that the developers are now planning to put content behind these walls of plastic purchases that could have just been in the game, or they could have just spent that time refining the current game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wonder if this is our our penalty. Like, I, it seemed like we got lucky with the new generation arriving, and games didn't go up $10 like they had like seemingly for every generation prior. I think like back on the PS1 or PS2 days, a new game was $40, and then I think it jumped to 50, and then 60, and now the new generation came, and we're still at 60, and I expected a $70, well, like a $10 price hike to the $70 point when the new gen started coming out, and then it never arrived. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I don't think we've ever gotten to keep our price point. Usually it goes up, but in
Hmm.
turn, they're actually getting much more than that with season passes and microtransactions for buying every little thing, and just so like you said, they're just monetizing every aspect of the game that they can. And there's plenty of people that are vehemently opposed to it, and that they'll never give in, but obviously it's working because it keeps happening. So there's plenty of people that are giving in too.
Oh yeah,
Well, that's
definitely.
one thing I wanted to ask you guys about. I'm glad you brought it up, Mark, was the season pass. Because
Yeah,
like I hear the term, and so I kind of understand it, but is it like a 1 year thing, or why is it called season
it's
pass?
it varies from game to game. It depends. For some games, it could be like Dying Light came out last January. Their season pass encompasses all the DLC that they've released so far, and they have more DLC coming out early next year, I think in January or February. So in that case, it actually extends beyond it. But basically, what a season pass is you buy in early, oftentimes before you even know what you're buying, which is kind of
Hmm.
funny. You buy in early.
You are taking a risk.
Yeah, yeah. You're basically buying like ownership of all the DLC that will come later. And actually, in some cases, it's not even all the DLC. Sometimes an expansion will be so large that uh, a publisher will say it's not included in the DLC, like the Run by Ubisoft, their racing game that came out earlier this year. They have this big. They're kind of like overhauling the whole game. They're like redoing the graphics engine. They're adding a bunch of new cars, new environments, all this stuff. But because it's so expansive, they feel justified to not include it in the season pass when it releases. So even if in that case, even if you bought the season pass, this DLC item isn't included. But typically, and unfortunately not always, it's supposed to include all the DLC that a game's going to have. Like when Batman came out in June, they said 6 months of DLC, and a lot of it's been, small things like just new costumes for all the heroes and villains. But they've added some new story content, and actually the last one comes out a couple weeks from now, or I guess in December if that 6 month plan is accurate.
Hmm. Is it like when I saw it, the only way it would make sense to me to buy it was if they told me you get 10 downloads total, and then you got to pick and choose which ones you got. That would make me happy.
Well, for which game? Because I mean, some games don't even have 10 things to download, and some have way more. And
But that's what I mean. Like you have no idea how much you're getting and stuff, and so it should be like I don't know, you're paying this much, and you get to pick and choose between what they're going to release, and if it's only going to be 6 things, then that should just be in the game.
well, yeah, there for me. I mean, I never really buy season passes anyways, just because if I'm buying a game on release, it's already $60, and I don't want
Hmm.
to pay 90 total. Like, because usually a season pass is like 30. Because
Hmm.
for a game like Call of Duty or Battlefield, they usually do like four expansions, and they'll be like 10 or $15 a piece. So basically, the season pass is usually like buy three get one free, and like that's what the
Hmm.
pricing works out to.
Hmm.
But you don't always know what those are going to look like at that point of purchase. It's just I don't know.
Hmm.
It's goofy to me. For certain games, maybe I'd consider it, but
Hmm.
again,
Well, and
like I said last week, I don't even play multiplayer. So unless it's all story content, I probably wouldn't even care. If it's story content, I'm probably going to get it anyways, and then there's a very slim chance I might consider it. But
Hmm.
then you're going back to the point that it's $90 when you're walking out the store, and I don't want to spend that.
And plus,
Hmm.
with the season passes, they don't change really, so you can always grab a season pass whenever you want. At the same, because
Yeah,
yeah,
it's not like it's something you have to buy in that moment. Although GameStop wants you to think that.
oh yeah, well, because
Well,
GameStop will say like, oh hey, we'll give you this neat one thing that doesn't do anything if you pay
Yeah,
$5 early.
it's
well,
extra.
that was the point I was gonna make. Is I almost boycott pre-ordering games now from places that give that out because it's I don't know. It's like bringing too much
Yeah,
commercialism into my decision making, and
I used to pre-order because if I knew I needed the game. This is when I was doing a lot of reviewing of my own, and it was actually working out for me. So I definitely would pre-order to make sure I got my copy. But
But
now it's just there's just no real point. Especially like I think it's funny to pre-order digital copies of things. I don't understand it at all. I mean, I guess
if I ever pre-order a digital game, it's because it has preloading, and then
yeah.
when midnight strikes, I can just turn the game on and start playing. But a lot of games don't even
Mhm.
offer that, so it's like, what's the point?
At that
They
point,
don't
So
offer
at that
that.
point, you're just an addict.
I don't. What I don't get is how. I mean, it's just funny that pre-ordering is even such a big part of the video games industry. Like the way that these stores and like publishers run their companies because like do you think there's a shortage of Call of Duty, like what is it, Black Ops 3 this November? Like there's no
No,
way
there's a
that you
shortage
won't
on the
get a copy.
campaign, but not in
Well,
the actual
yeah, but I
game.
mean there's no shortage of copies. Like it doesn't make
Oh yeah,
I think
it's the highest
pre-ordering comes
selling
from a
franchise,
time.
right? It is the
Huh?
highest selling franchise, right?
I think so. It depends on which metric you use. I've seen a few different. I've seen GTA and Mario both at the
Well,
top. Of what I thought was that same. So
oh,
who the hell knows? But
yeah, I think no, yeah, well, no, you're right. No, Mario is definitely number one. I think GTA 5 may have the most sold in like one out of one game, but I think out of the series altogether, Call of Duty's pretty much probably number two.
yeah,
But
it
it's not like
depends.
that really matters. I mean, you're right. They're never. I mean, they're gonna have enough copies for everybody.
Yeah, pre-ordering comes from a time before GameStop was this like mega corporation that exists twice. Like I have malls near my house that have two GameStops in them, and then there's a GameStop. Well, actually, I shouldn't say in my house near my house because this is back in Massachusetts before I moved. But there's a mall in Massachusetts that has two GameStops inside it. One on the first floor, one on the second or third floor, and then across the street there's a third GameStop. Like pre-ordering
Jeez.
comes from a time
That
when there was like indie stores,
Yeah.
like these independent game sellers, and they weren't going to have many copies, and you pre-ordered it to guarantee that you got one of those very few copies. GameStop on November whatever, November 7th or whatever, when Call of Duty comes out, every store is going to get like dozens or hundreds of probably hundreds of copies. Like there's you're not going to be without yours if you go in there on the first day and not pre-ordered it, or if you go in there weeks later, by then they've got more. Like it's so unnecessary, but they just really win with stupid little things like you said. I don't know. I just so rarely pre-order. I don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said. Unless you know you're gonna get something like actually get something out of it, there really isn't any point in today in pre-ordering. I think like I would almost pre-order Fallout 4 just because I would want to play it the second it came out. But other than that, there hasn't been any games where I would really care enough to play it as soon as possible. I can
does
definitely wait on it.
does Fallout 4 have preloading available?
I'm fairly certain for PC it probably does.
Yeah, see, so then something like that, then it makes sense because for me, I don't know why the PS4 downloads digital copies pretty fast. My Xbox does not. I'll be honest, even though I like Xbox better, it's a lot slower.
don't they have
Uh,
the cloud to do that?
huh?
Doesn't the
I,
Xbox tout the cloud
yes, they're all
processing?
powerful.
Yeah, I don't think Xbox knows what it's doing anymore. To be honest.
I'm still on the. If I were to say I was on one side of the fence, it's Xbox One.
What is
Just
that?
to
I gotta hear this. Why is that?
Well, I think Mark touched on it last episode, but I like the controller.
Okay, yeah,
I
that's
like
true.
the series, and a lot of my friends have Xboxes.
Yeah, see, that's what broke me between PS3 and Xbox 360. All my friends had it. I didn't really care about either or, but all my
Mm.
friends had a 360. That's the only reason why I got the 360. Now I want to get the PS4. Well, actually, I want to get the PS4 because honestly, I think they're coming out with better IPs, and all my friends are also on PS4.
Mm.
Hmm.
So that's why I'm going towards that. But I'm getting an Xbox One anyways.
Yeah,
So
let's all game together.
yeah, no, definitely. Well, somebody has to get out of his Nintendo bubble. So
Well, and I have an interesting story to tell. This is a segue. We could edit this out if we need to.
go ahead,
But
go ahead.
I was
Tell us.
I was playing Splatoon 2 weekends ago. This is where I was applying to like 3 jobs a day, just getting either no response or rejection letter. So I'm like no job or anything. My girlfriend was out of town, so I decided to play Splatoon Friday night, and it was a Splatfest, which is where if you haven't played it, it's
Sounds brutal.
yeah, it's you choose a side, and so you had to choose between planes versus cars, and I was on team car, and then you play against everyone who chose team plane, and I don't know what it was, like my internet connection or what, but I was just getting like leg kills, like I was dying after I was killing somebody constantly. My teams were losing every time, and every time you lose on this game, you get knocked down points, and then you move down a rank after so many points you lose. I was so
Punishing you,
angry.
jeez,
Yeah, it's brutal for a Nintendo game. Um,
with all these little
and
squid kids.
yeah, exactly. And so I kind of broke in a moment, and I punched the gamepad and just broke my LCD screen.
Oh wow,
Wow, no, I
that's
didn't. You
So
know
super
what?
expensive.
I did not expect that from you, Cole. Are you gonna become like a serial killer now because of this? Every time
well,
you
yeah, I
go down
mean,
a rank.
we'll figure that out once we start talking about horror games.
Yeah,